But how many people have you actually seen poop in person?
Dude, in our Snapchat group, that used to be a thing. That was a Dom, tell me that was not like some of the most disturbing
Yeah.
moments of our upbringing was seeing. I mean, the
Some would say
people will
traumatizing.
people will not understand like a group of guys in a Snapchat group, the amount of weird shit that gets passed around and sent to each other.
No pun
We
intended
would,
there, by the way.
yeah. I mean, I have seen I've seen more guys shit than I would ever like to see in my entire life. But if you charge me $100 for a pay per view, I better see a damn billionaire take a shit. That's all I'm saying. Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA show. Preview time once again. I'm joined by Dominic Salee. We are both in Ohio. We are both back at our humble abode. Vacation is over. Dominic, I have a bone to pick to start today's episode.
Okay.
Come back Tuesday to my apartment. So
Yep.
go back to work Wednesday, right? I wake up at my normal time, 6 a.m. Ugh, that was a tough alarm. Well, I wake up and I go to the bathroom and I turn on the light, except the light doesn't turn on.
Oh.
Power's out.
Oh. Oh.
And I'm like, damn, well, good thing. I just so happened to take a shower the night before. It was
True.
like a random, I just felt gross and I was like, I'm going to take a shower. Typically, I'm a morning shower person.
Wake up.
Yeah, like that's how I like to start my morning. I don't like to shower before bed.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, also like my hair turns into a mess if I don't
True.
shower in the
Right.
morning. It's just
Yeah.
it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, thank God for that. So then I grab all my stuff, get dressed, whatever, leave. Garage won't open. I have a garage like for my car, and
Okay.
it won't open.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Also, to get into the building, it's kind of an electronic key system. Can't get back in the building.
Okay. Okay.
Phone on 5%.
Wow, things are unraveling quickly here.
Yeah. This is all before 7 a.m. on my first day back to work. By the way, not a rain cloud in sight the whole night. No, I still don't know to this day what happened. I don't have a damn clue why all the power went out in my complex, but I do know this. I kind of had a mental breakdown there in the parking lot.
That's all the ingredients of one, I'd say.
I contemplated not even telling my boss because I was like, well, maybe if I just don't go, he'll just think, well, maybe he told me he was off today too.
Right. Yeah.
But I used my last 5% to let him know. Eventually, I was able to make my way back inside. Probably, I think the power came back on around 7:45.
Oh, wow.
So basically, I couldn't leave till about then. So usually I get to work at 7. I just hate having to go in later because that means I have to leave later, Dom.
Right.
So it was not a great first day back. And it just continues the trend I've had over the last couple months of bad times with technology.
Yeah, that's really the root there, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, our forefathers never had to deal with this shit.
True.
My great grandpappy, who fought in the war, never had to worry about this shit. He just put his overalls on, went and preached at the little chapel.
Yeah.
And then probably came home and beat his wife. Anyways, Dominic, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. What a wild beginning to this episode, but here we are. And I'm feeling good. It's going to be a good weekend. We've got UFC, we've got PFL, a little bit of one sprinkled on this show even that we're going to talk about later. ABC card. I get to see the Reds in person this weekend for the first time in a long time, and damn it, people, they're hot right now. For those that watch baseball, don't count out those Cincinnati Reds down there. So I think it's going to be a very, very good weekend, Noah, and we kick it all off in the studio as we always do Any plans for you this weekend, or is it's a fight weekend, a recover? You're back from vacation, a first full weekend back home. Any mixtures of anything?
Major tumbleweed energy is what's going on here. I'll let the wind take me wherever it wants me to go.
There you
I
go.
can tell you when I get off recording, I'm probably going to walk and go eat somewhere.
There you go.
Beautiful day outside.
It is. That it is.
This weekend, will I leave the apartment? I don't know. We'll see what the wind's up to.
Yeah, exactly.
Might go hang out with some friends. I don't know.
Play D&D, maybe.
Maybe I'll play 2K. Maybe I'll turn on the PlayStation 5 for the first time in like 5 months.
Yeah, or PlayStation 2.
The PlayStation 3, which would be the first time I've touched it in like 8 months.
Sounds like a weekend of history, if you ask me.
Anyways, Dominic, I want to remind everyone where they can follow us on social media. They can do so Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at the BAJ MMA.
Yeah.
Above Dominic's head if you're watching on YouTube. You can follow myself on Twitter or Instagram at Noah Baker MMA. You can follow that man to my right, Dominic Slee, on Twitter, on Instagram at DSlee14. Also, I almost forgot to plug the platforms. If you are watching us on YouTube, go follow us on Spotify, on Apple. If you prefer an audio podcast, audio versions of the show, go up there at the Below Average Joe's MMA Show. And then if you're listening on audio and you'd like a video version to see our beautiful faces, you can go to the Below Average Joe's YouTube channel, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, like, all that bullshit. Did I cover everything, Dominic?
All bases were covered.
All right, let's head to Jacksonville, UFC Fight Night, or UFC on ABC 5, whatever. We haven't gotten to the UFC Vegas numbers yet, where I'm just like, I don't remember a single one. Still fairly fresh, but we're gonna see Josh Emmett, Dominic, number 5 ranked at featherweight, but he comes in as a plus 285 underdog to take on the fastest surging prospect in the featherweight division, Ilia Topuria. Comes in at a minus 345. And I think that's where our story starts, Dominic.
Sure.
Despite Josh Emmett being top 5 ranked, coming off a interim title shot, he takes a step back, theoretically, takes on a guy who just entered the top 10 in Topuria. Is Tupuria's toughest test to date. And yet the odds makers are so confident that Topuria is over a 3-1 favorite. I want you to give your thoughts on this, Dominic. Obviously, with respect to Josh Emmett and Topuria, both great fighters. But Dominic, when you look at a line like this, let's talk about the human angle of it, not necessarily like playing the lines or whatnot. Just when you see this, do you feel like the odds makers are underestimating Josh Emmett, or do you think a mixture of maybe the fact that he's 38 years old, Ilia Topuria just being that good, makes you sort of side with the fact that, no, I mean, I highly favor him to win here as well.
No, man, I don't like this line. This is not a line that's parlayable, in my opinion, if you're on the Ilia side, and I don't think it's a line that's worth even sprinkling for Josh Emmett. It's one of those where I want nothing to do with it. I don't even want to look at the lines for the over-unders, the inside the distances, nothing. Didn't touch this fight, man, because, Josh Emmett, 38, 12 years older, but the man still hits like a truck, and he does it in a very methodical fashion because he can use that power over the course of 3 and 5 round fights to win decisions as well. And Topuria, this is going to be his first time going potentially into deep waters in those rounds 3, 4, 5. I mean, the guy has 13 wins and 12 of them are by finish. He doesn't see the scorecards very often, but I look at this as like, okay, well, if he can get, stumbled and knocked down by Jai Herbert, I'd like to think Josh Emmett could potentially knock down Ilia Topuria and cause some damage too. I mean, this is a scary fight from a betting perspective, but the fight as a whole here, I think it's really intriguing because Emmett doesn't have much left in the tank, right? And I say that in terms of like title aspirations. At 38 years old in a division as deep as this, it's win or you're going to go really far away from a title shot. And Topuria here, his first real big dive into the elite competition. I mean, yes, his last fight was against Bryce Mitchell, but before that, no one in the rankings for him. So This is a very big test, but it is a winnable test. Therefore, I understand this type of matchup, but I don't think it comes as easy as what a minus 345 betting line would say.
I think the big difference, you mentioned the Jai Herbert fight, and that's the first fight that stuck out to me is like when I saw this line, I'm like, well, he looked kind of vulnerable there for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Outside of that, obviously Tuporia's looked fantastic. You look at the way he disposed of Bryce Mitchell, who's very
Mm-hmm.
good. The big difference was, Dominic, that Topuria is a small statured featherweight, and
Yeah,
Jai
true.
Herbert has a huge reach advantage on him. Is a very tall and lanky featherweight. That will not be an issue for him
Mm,
against Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett, I think, has 1 inch each reach advantage on Topuria, which is so crazy. Topuria has been at a massive disadvantage in every
yeah.
fight he's been in when it comes to reach, but has he yet looked so good? I'll be honest with you, Dom. I don't love it at the price. I'm not sure if I'll parlay it, but if I had to pick a side, I'm picking Tuporia on
Yeah.
in a parlay here, just because I think the most likely outcome here is Tuporia wins this pretty easily.
Mm,
Josh Emmett's very good. I think he took an appropriate amount of time uh, from the Yair loss. You know, this is a guy
mm-hmm.
who's lost a lot of time due to just seemed like every time he gets in there, Dominic, he just comes out with a really bad injury
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something. So he's lost a lot of really good years, and he's trying to really capitalize on his standing like right now because, like you said, and as I mentioned, he's 38. We know how this goes for guys above the age of 35. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's never happened outside of
Right.
Tyron Woodley. So I get like it's crazy to say a guy who just came off a title fight, interim title, whatever, already feels like he doesn't have much left in terms of title aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
But with a loss here, I think you can pretty confidently close that shut completely.
Yeah.
And for Tuporia, he is the young, hungry challenger who is yet to reach his ceiling. Josh Emmett was so close to that promised land. He had such a great fight with Yair, but unfortunately, he couldn't get it done. Now he's gonna have to go up against such a, like I said, young, hungry challenger who's really aggressive, and that's an interesting element to this fight too, Dominic. Both guys super aggressive. So who's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
put on the back foot first? I lean that Josh Emmett will be the one to back down.
Yeah, and I almost wonder because I'm trying to think of some of these other fights for Josh where, like I said, he does have that power, but he doesn't necessarily like if he finds the opening, he'll go for it, but he can play that long game. And I almost wonder if he tries to get Ilia into those later rounds. And I know that means
Mm.
he's going to have to try and fend off some of those aggressive pressures and pacing that you just said for Ilia here. If Ilia comes in and just rushes at Emmett, I could see it being successful, but I could also see an opening there for Josh Emmett to capitalize just due to the experience, the amount of competition that he's faced. That's I think where I'm going to be interested here is who is going to push forward more when they're both aggressive strikers. Who's going to really go here? That's the kicker for me in this one.
I guess Emmett has shown more of an ability to sort of play the long game. I mean, he's been to some decisions and maybe has utilized more footwork and movement at times. But I will attribute at least Ilya's lack of that maybe to the fact of the competition he's been fighting. He really hasn't had a need for that at this point. Maybe against Herbert, we could have seen a little bit more of it. But
Mm,
um, I would say for Emmett, I don't expect Tuporia to just. I'm not. What was the phrase you used to just like get
like
over,
rushing at him,
yeah,
you know.
rush in at him. I don't expect him to do that. I mean, it's possible. If Ilya comes in here overconfident and doesn't respect the power, the real talent of Josh Emmett, it could get very interesting. But
Yeah.
I don't see him being overzealous. I think he uses his aggression pretty appropriately. And against a guy in Emmett who I think is a more favorable matchup to Tuporia than some other guys in the top five, I think it's in his best interest, I believe, to use his aggression because if he can get Emmett on his back foot, I just don't believe that's a place Emmett is at his best. And I don't think that's his best recipe for winning this fight. If Emmett's going to win this fight, Dominic, he's going to have to utilize a lot more of what you're talking about using that movement and trying to kind of almost like that it's an overused comparison. But when people talk about the bull and the matador,
Mm-hmm.
like he's going to have to kind of matador this one for a couple of rounds. And
Yeah.
that's an overused phrase, but I mean that's kind of what it is here. Is he's going to have to use that aggression against him and make him pay for it whenever he tries. But easier said than done.
Yeah, and I wonder if early on, let's say Emmett does have some success, lands a couple shots. I wonder if any grappling could come into play for a guy like Topuria, who does have 8 submissions to his name. He sees Emmett just lost to submission against Yair Rodrigues, who, by the way, is not very well known for submitting people. I think that's another dynamic, but I don't think we see it if Topuria finds success on the feet, because then I think he's going to want to stay there. But if it can be an evenness, let's say, through that first round, it opens up, I think, a few more opportunities to really see how this fight can evolve over the course of 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Well said, Dominic. And I think with that, we're going to move on to the rest of UFC Jacksonville. I'm going to ask you, Dominic, at the top here. We'll touch on a couple fights. So we'll start with the co-main event. Amanda Ribas taking on Maycee Barber. This is a fight that I'm particularly interested in your opinion on, because at times in their careers, you have been very high on both of these ladies. You were very high on Maycee Barber when she was on her way up. She had that, 4 straight fights, if you include the Contender Series, where she got the finish. Then she had that 2-fight skid, has looked better as of late, but it was sort of, even when she started winning again, it looked like maybe she had hit a wall of sorts. While Amanda Ribas was someone who got on everybody's radar, including yours, around the time of Fight Island, when she got, or maybe it was the win over Mackenzie Dern. For me, it was the Paige Van Zandt fight where I really was like, whoa, okay, this girl's like really good. And even she has sort of hit a bit of a wall where it's like, okay, she seems committed to 125, but we didn't really see a need for her to leave 115 pounds.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to get an idea of where you stand right now with both these ladies. Are you still very high on one or both, or do you feel like maybe the neither one of them is going to reach their full ceiling you once saw for them, or how are you sort of feeling on both?
While I'm still definitely a fan of both and how they're so young and into this game and helpful for that 125-pound weight class, I tend to lean right now, what I'm seeing as of late, to the side of Amanda Ribas, and maybe credit that to even a losing effort to Caitlin Chukagian, but that fight really did tell me a lot about how she stands. And then she comes back out and has a really good performance against Viviane Araújo. That was a very good win for her. Maycee back on track, yes, 4 wins in a row. 2 of those you could argue that she lost in Andrea Lee and Miranda Maverick. And the Miranda Maverick one is weird because I'm starting to view Miranda in such a different light after her most recent fight. So it's very strange. So I think Ribas here is where I lean, and in terms of their career and in this fight. That betting line didn't quite get to a good enough spot for me to play it confidently, I will add, but I lean Ribas here. I think as well, while they're both in equal places in terms of rankings, I view the ceiling to be higher for Amanda Ribas moving forward here.
And I mean, do you believe that at 125 pounds? Because to me, I'm not fully convinced that she's made for flyweight. Like I feel like
Right. Yeah.
I thought there was a much higher ceiling for her at strawweight, even with the
Yeah.
loss to Marina Rodrigues. Like, so when you say that, do you say that with the expectation that she will stay at 125 pounds for this biggest part of her run, or do you sort of expect her to eventually go back down?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably both, but the strength of Maycee Barber here is going to be an interesting one, because Macy's very physically enticing, very strong, a true 125-pounder. If Amanda can get through that, I feel even more confident that she can have a prolonged run at 125. I would still love to see her play out the course at 115, because I feel like that's her natural weight class where she carries good size but doesn't have to like kill herself to get down there. So I don't know why she's kind of more committed now. This is going to be 3 straight at 125. Maybe it's just kind of the lay of the land. Maybe she's more interested in some of these fights. I don't really know. But I think in general, no matter what weight class she does in her next fight, I still view her and her ceiling higher than what I would Maycee Barber. And if Maycee Barber were to win here, that would definitely be a big statement.
This fight to me, I can't shake past. Like I think I'm going to end up playing a prop for this fight to go to a split decision. I just I view this fight, and like I think both of these fighters are kind of in a similar place. I think they're similarly skilled.
Mm.
Doesn't mean that someone can't get a big advantage here somewhere, but like I don't really see either one of them having a huge advantage over the other. They're both kind of, and they're both in similar places. Like these two feel like such mirror images of each other,
Yeah.
not in terms of the what they offer,
Right.
but just where they are, where they've been, how the public opinion has swayed on them. Maybe a little harsher toward Maycee Barber.
Mm-hmm.
It's been her I don't know if you want to call them failures, or her down moments have been more publicized, I would say. But I just can't help but shake, like, whoever wins this fight might not be the consensus winner for the public. Like, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I could see it. I
And
mean,
it scares
especially
me away. It scares me
Yeah.
away from betting on it, Dominic. We complain so much about, judging, and we're betters, and I'm like, is it in my best interest to bet a fight? If I love Maycee Barber at that price, plus 165 for a fight that I
Mhm.
feel is so even.
Yeah.
But is it worth it when she could, realistically, in most people's opinion, win 2 of the 3 rounds, but 2 of the 3 judges may not give it to her? Like,
Yeah.
is it better? Is it more in my interest to go for that crazy prop of the split decision? That's the decision I have to make as a MMA gambler.
Those usually come out to like plus 300 or 400. So, a
Yeah.
little half unit sprinkle on
I can
there
already
still
tell
pays
you. No,
well.
I'm probably putting a full unit. I have to make up for that Michelle Waterson Gomez fight that she last had, where I literally went to the prop for the split decision. It was her and Loopy, wasn't it? Wasn't it her and Loopy, or who was she fighting?
I can't even remember at this point.
But this was just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But I went to it. I was like, "Whoa, split decision plus 350 or whatever," and then somehow ended up playing the minus 170 majority decision, or unanimous decision. Somehow, like, psyched myself out of it, and then it ended up being a split decision.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell happened, so I have to make up for that.
All right. I'll be on the lookout.
But Dominic, I'm just going to kind of ask you, like, we can talk about a few of these fights. There's some good ones on here, but I want you to go down the rest of the card and give me a fighter or a fight that you are most excited for beyond those top 2, even if it's something that you're more or less excited for.
I mean, two of my guys are going back to back on this card, but it all starts with Onama. David Onama's back. It's been a long time. August 13th last year against Nate the Train was the last time we saw David Onama in the cage. So there's going to be people probably listening or watching us that have never even watched him fight before. You're probably going to want to tune in this Saturday. Win or lose, the man is in nothing short of fight of the nights. And he's actually a big underdog. I think plus 195. I believe I'll be talking about it in Blazin Bets, but I got him a little bit less than that. But he's going up against Gabriel Santos here. Okay, David Onama 2-2 in the UFC. Santos 0-1, but it was to Lerone Murphy, who was undefeated, and it was a split decision
A lot of
loss
people
there.
thought he won. I remember that.
So this is a very enticing one. I understand the kind of love for Santos, and maybe that goes off of that result with Lerone Murphy. But David Onama, he gets in these crazy, wild fights, but I think he's actually way more well-rounded than what those wild fights may say, and that leads me to lean on him more than just as a fan, but I think he can truthfully win this fight, even if I had never seen him fight before. So I love that matchup. I think it's going to be very, very fun, Noah.
I completely agree with you on Onama as far as offensively. I think he's a powerhouse offensively.
Yeah, great point.
But defensively, it's just not there yet.
Right.
And I think the Nate Landwehr fight exposed a lot of that. Yeah, like the debut with Mason Jones, such short notice. Like, it was such a good fight. You're able to look past some of those things. But when he fought Nate Landwehr, I mean, if Nate doesn't act like a fucking maniac in that fight,
Yeah.
Onama's probably not making it to the
Yeah, scorecards.
scorecards. Like, and it seemed like even when he hurt Landwehr, he somehow would charge in, keep his chin up, wing in hooks, and he got caught. And that's when it just became this back and forth. Amazing fight. I mean,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong. Tune in, regardless if
Yeah.
Onama wins. It's going to be a great fight. And Gabe Santos, I believe, is capable of putting together a very good fight. But that's the big edge for me towards Santos. Not to the point where I'll probably bet on this fight. Maybe I'll do an under. I don't know. These guys are both tough.
Yeah.
With Santos, I just think he's shown with that Lerone Murphy fight, he showed to be more defensively sound.
Yeah.
So for Onama, I love what he offers offensively. I think he's so explosive, so fun to watch. I just hope we can see him put it all together. I mean, Dominic, this was the guy you said to begin 2022, your biggest prospect in the UFC that was unranked.
Yeah, I want to see it. 10 months off now. Maybe something got polished up.
I think it's good that he took that time off.
Yeah,
because that was
he
a
was
war.
at bangers, man.
Yeah.
Like 4 straight. So
yeah, and I mean that fight that he left off of, even if he hadn't fought for 10 months before that, like that one was enough damage to where you're like, okay, let's take some time. Like I understand you lose like that. There probably is this itch to get right back in there and show that you're not like, that you are who people think you are and stuff. And I'm glad he didn't fall for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Some other fights on this card, Dominic. Neil Magny back.
Yeah.
He's taking on Phil Rowe. Interesting fight for Neil Magny at this point in his career. This was a guy who just in his last fight was taking on Gilbert Burns. And if he had won there, who knows what could have happened for him. He could have been the one fighting, well, probably not Masvidal, but he would at least be maybe in line for a Bilal Muhammad fight or whatever. And now he loses that and he takes on Phil Rowe. It was kind of sneakily gone under the radar. He's 3-1 in UFC. I did not know that record was I remember watching vividly his debut against Gabe Green. Kind of snuck up on me that he's 3-1. He's 32 years old. To me, the story is which Neil Magny shows up.
Yep.
That's what it is every time. You look at when he fought in Columbus, even like he won against Max Griffin, Dom, but you felt like he could have got that done easier than he did.
Yeah.
If he shows up in a similar state, Phil Rowe has some physical advantages, can match Magny in that length that Max Griffin could not do.
For sure.
And yes, Phil Rowe's not a Gilbert Burns or a Shavkat Rakhmonov, but he is a dangerous guy. And to his credit, he's less aged, either fight years or in actual years than Neil Magny. So that's the big concern for me. I will say, though, I like the longer this fight goes for it to benefit Neil Magny. And it's hard for me to imagine Phil Rowe coming in here and like stopping him. So, real tug of war here. I could see myself playing something on this fight, but I don't think I have a clear enough picture of how I see it going. Or I haven't. This will be a spoiler for Blazin Bets, but I actually don't have anything as of now, just because I haven't had a chance to look. But once I look, I could see myself being pulled at something.
Yeah, no, this was a tough one for me as I was building up my slip earlier because throughout the week, all I've seen is people jumping at the Neil Magny line because he's like minus, I don't know, 170-ish on most books, around that ballpark, which is a playable number, right? If we're playing singles, we like to get him at under minus 200. So that's a playable money line for sure. A lot of people think he should be higher than that, over a minus 200 favorite. And while I understand that because of the competition and just who Neil Magny has faced, there's something about it when I kept looking at these stats and looking at the fights that made me stay away from it. And then if anything, I may, and it's not going to show on today's segment, but I may end up doing something with Philip Rowe, even potentially by finish. And I know Noah just said it's hard to envision that happening for Neil, but Phil Rowe has 10 wins and all of them are by stoppage. 8 of Neil's 10 losses are by stoppage here. I know the math always doesn't line up, but if I'm going to play this fight, it's me sprinkling on that because I couldn't find myself pulling the trigger on Neil Magny. As good as competition that he's faced, there's something about the younger Phil Rowe here. I don't know what it is.
I wonder what the over-under is on this fight.
That's a good question. I didn't see
when
that.
I look at that, I could see that kind of pulling me a certain direction, depending. It might be. I could see it being very tight because do you really do the over under at 2.5 rounds? Well, if you do, like, does the under have the advantage there or the over?
Right.
Because we
Mm-hmm.
know that both guys fight a lot differently. Neil Magny is not afraid to take that fight that full 15 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
And like you just said, Phil Rowe never won a fight that he didn't finish.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
We have some more fights, Dominic, but I'm
We
just going to
do.
touch on a few of them. Rude boy Randy Brown taking on Wellington Turman. Shout out Randy Brown.
Friend of the
Wellington
program.
Turman is still the craziest name I've ever seen for. He's Brazilian, isn't he?
Yeah, and you'd think he's like from Great Britain from like the
I
1700s.
was
It's
about to
crazy.
say, you would
Yeah.
think he has like a monocle and like a top hat. You think he's a
Yeah.
Monopoly man. That's what the
Yeah.
Monopoly man's name
That's
is.
his name.
Wellington Turman.
Yeah.
But no, it's just a Brazilian who's really good at submitting people. Okay,
Yeah.
well, fitting. Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva is a crazy
That's
fight,
an
Dominic.
interesting one.
I mean, talk about a style clash here. Bruno Silva, 20 wins via knockout. Brendan Allen kind of has a mixture of both, but much probably better suited here to take this fight to the ground because Bruno Silva literally has 6 losses via submission. Has never won a fight via submission as Bruno Silva.
Yeah.
So quite the style clash there. And then you have one of the more interesting prospects in the men's flyweight division, Tatsuro Taira.
All the way down on the
here.
bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what he has to offer against Kleydson Rodrigues, another fun fighter. So, Dominic, I want to give you a chance to kind of touch on some of those fights or any other fights that I didn't hit right there at the end.
Yeah, those are all incredible. I'm excited to see that Brendan Allen one. That's another thing too. Like while I'm not confident in straight up plays or doing parlays, there are some props and finishing methods on this card that I think are worth a sprinkle here. I got to keep digging. And then just one other fight that I think is really good. It sucks that Tatsuro Taira is on the bottom of the card, by the way, but I heard they may have actually done that to cater toward Japan. And since he's earlier on the card, it's a better time for them to watch him. So if we're going to put him down there, hopefully that's the reason why, because he's an incredible young talent if you haven't seen him. The only other one for me that sticks out is Tabatha Ricci and Gillian Robertson. No, I think that's actually going to be a good fight for women's strawweight. Gillian made her debut in that weight class earlier this year, looked great and stopped Pierre Rodrigues, who was someone I was very high on. Tabatha Ricci, though, in her best performance ever, just stopped Jessica Panay. Both of them just had great performances where I had huge takeaways for both, and now they're fighting each other. So I think that's a very interesting clash as well.
Baby Shark.
Yep, Baby Shark.
I don't know why. I just every time I see that nickname, I'm just like, that's a cool nickname. Let's move on to PFL, Dominic. Little PFL preview. This is the last of our regular season bouts. What a just roller coaster of a season it has been. But I think we're ready to end on a high note, Dominic. I mean, this. The longer now that we're like a couple years into really watching PFL, and we kind of like the uniqueness of the tournament, but I will fully admit, I'm seeing the flaws in the system as we watch it more and more. You look at this card, what's really grabbing you? Is it OAM taking on Anthony Romero? Like, yeah, I'm ready to watch OAM fight, but is the matchup with Anthony Romero really that interesting? Shane Burgos is back. I love Shane Burgos. He's taking on Yamato Nishikawa.
Yeah.
Does that matchup really inspire a lot of interest? I think the most interesting matchup on this card is Clay Collard, Stevie Ray.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
that's a
one
fight
of
filled
them.
with banger potential. And I think Stevie Ray even said he might be retiring after this fight. So
yeah, I saw that.
Something to look out for. I think Magomed Karimov and David Zawada is a good fight. There is good fights to be had on here. Natan Schultz and Rosh Manfio. We like Rosh Manfio in these parts. So I think there is some good fights. Also, Solomon Renfro, by the way, on this card, Dominic. Let's not forget who Solomon Renfro is. I'm not sure if you remember, but he was on last season of Dana White's Contender Series, and I was flabbergasted that in a season where Dana awarded like 98% of winners,
and he
did not get Solomon Renfro a contract, and I was not happy about it. So I'm excited to see guys like him, Impa Kazaganai, my boys, the lost boys that fall out of the UFC. I'm glad to see them get a home. What I'm saying is I like them. Like, these are fun cards to watch. We're coming off, the last couple cards have been good. But it makes it more clear in my head that if the PFL is going to be sustainable, they're going to eventually have less of an emphasis on tournaments. And if they even buy Bellator, it's probably just going to become they're just going to implement Grand Prix, and they're
Grand
not going
Prix.
to do this season format. They're going to start having cards more regularly, is my guess. But regardless, I just wanted to put that out there. Just like I was looking at the card, and I'm just like, like when they had the first batch to open the season, you had OAM versus Shane Burgos. Like that's a fight that grabs me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because I think they're trying to make sure, they're trying to do it's the playoff format, right? Like,
yep, I know where you're going.
You're matching up guys that are sort of higher in the rankings versus guys who are lower in the rankings. It's that's the format. It makes these cards on paper look a little weaker in comparison.
You couldn't have said it better, because I was about to touch on that, because the main card is built for the favorites to win relatively easy and get into the playoffs. Where the fights get interesting stylistically and in terms of what they mean is that middle chunk, those prelim portions. Collard Ray, Carlos Leal Delano Taylor, Schultz Manfio, Alexander Martinez, Bruno Miranda. These are all people that if they win, they're more than likely in, and they're matched up with one another. There's meaning on both sides of the coin. That's what stood out to me the most when I was going through this card, looking at who's ranked where, how many points does this person have. Those top build fights are built for those people to win, the favorites, that is, and make it in. The other ones in the middle are the ones that are very important, that are going to be very closely contested, will be very close fights, and will have a ton of meaning at the end of the night when they're playing those rankings for the playoffs.
But then you have the chance when you do get to the main card, you have a Jesus Pinedo type showing against Brendan
you never know.
So, but that's a good thing to touch on. I mean, when you're talking about like we really like to hit the storylines and stuff, like that really is the thing that grabs me most actually on these cards is like I can't help but even though I sort of foresee the PFL moving away from it, I am interested in the standings. I am interested in seeing what I like when they show a guy who needs someone to lose on screen and you're seeing. I think there's drama to that. I do think the PFL could probably do a better job of like showcasing it or whatever. Like it feels like it's just kind of there, it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like there could be a little more build up, a little more drama, for it. But baby steps. I just think that like you're right. It really you watch these cards and like you have some of that if you want to call it star power for the PFL with the OAM, Shane Burgos, but you go a little lower, and those are the fights that are really carrying the intrigue, the drama of it all.
Right. The point of the promotion is the season, and that's where it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very good point. And I'm just excited to get to the playoffs,
Yeah, coming up in August, so this is it.
Yeah. Now we got a ONE FC main event, Dominic. Say it ain't so. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching that are like, hallelujah. The boys are talking about ONE FC. But we had to, Dominic. It's a heavyweight fight between your current undisputed champion, Arjan Bhullar, taking on the interim champion, Anatoly Malykhin. Malykhin, by the way, also your undisputed light heavyweight champion. And Dominic, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna pretend like I've seen every fight that Anatoly Malykhin's been in. But his win and the fashion he did it against Rene de Ritter, who was looking like the best pound for pound fighter in ONE, and the way he dominated him. I'll be honest with you. Then you even look at when he won the interim heavyweight title, the knockout he had against Gabriel. I think when you were talking about, and this is going to feel a bit hypocritical.
It's all right.
The whole argument we had about Vadim Nemkov.
Sure.
I sort of look at Malykhin, and I feel like this is a guy who could compete in the top 5 at heavyweight.
All right.
I'm not, and I'll fully admit, I see the buy or the fallacy in my logic from my arguments against Nemkov last week, but I'm at least trying to hold myself back and just say I see the potential for it. Now, resume, I mean, Rene de Ritter is that's
a huge win. He was one of the best fighters in the world, Rene.
And Dominic, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think he might dominate this fight. Arjan Bhullar is really good.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, he's very good. I mean, he's the one that took the belt from Brandon Vera, who had been heavyweight champion for a long time. But Dominic, he hasn't fought in 2 years. And he's had a lot of setbacks to get here. He had some issues with the promotion. He might have even had an injury because this fight was supposed to take place a couple months ago. It ended up falling through. So now they're doing it on their one Friday fights card, which, by the way, this is not an Amazon Prime card. This will be airing on their YouTube channel.
Okay.
And us if you are Eastern Standard Time person like me and Dom, it is airing at 8:30 in the morning on Friday.
Gotcha. Good to know.
I believe there's another method to watch it, like maybe on their website or something, but YouTube channel. I won't get to watch it live. I'll be working, but I'll watch it when I get home. Besides that, there's a lot of really good Muay Thai fights on there, but for MMA Dominic, that's the big fight. It's big. I really believe in Malykhin, and I believe he's going to become the 2-weight division champion.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally fought all 3 of his fights in one have happened since the last time we've seen Bhullar step into the cage there and won championship. So that could say a lot.
Crazy.
Double champion status on the line.
It says a lot. It says a lot, man, when a guy wins the interim title in the division that you're champion of and then goes and defends his other title while you're still on the shelf. And again, this isn't a knock on Bhullar. I mean, do what you got to do. I'm just saying, I don't think it bodes well for his chances here when this guy's been going out starching people like Rene de Ritter, and you're, struggling with getting a contract worked out or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the vibes are not on his side here. That's the truth of the matter. And even if you look at the skill sets, I just think Malykhin is a fucking buzzsaw.
There you go, people. If that don't make you want to check it out, I don't know what does. Let's go.
Yep. East Coast or Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. Friday. So as you're watching this, maybe on your way to work.
Yeah, true.
Make sure to have one screen, for ONE FC.
Yeah, there you
go. Let's move on to the fight announcements, Dominic.
We had a chunk again.
Yeah, that we did. And I'm just going to give them all to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you put the pieces together here.
Yeah.
Virna Jandiroba is out against Tatiana Suarez. However, Dominic, she will now, Tatiana that is, be taking on Jessica Andrade on August 5th, UFC Nashville. How about August 19th, UFC 292, Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Chito Vera. Then September 2nd, UFC Paris. Nasruddin Imavov is back taking on Roman Dolidze. 2 guys that had a lot of potential for a while now, looking to get back on track. Also, September 2nd, Game Bred, Bare Knuckle, MMA, Junior Dos Santos takes on Fabricio Verdum. How many years since their original fight in the UFC?
Oh, boy, probably.
I thought it was like, when you said it to me, I thought it was like 15 or 12
13,
or
15, something like that.
Yeah. So a lot of time has passed.
And rumor has it the winner of that'll fight Francis Ngannou in the PFL.
Oh, my God. September 10th, Dominic, over in Sydney, Australia, UFC 293.
Oh.
Kai Kara France taking on Manel Kape.
Yeah.
And finally, September 16th, this is considered UFC Vegas, but this is the Mexican Independence card.
Yep.
Fluffy Hernandez taking on Chris Curtis. So shout out wait a minute. Can Chris Curtis even turn around that quick? I thought he was on like a 6-month suspension.
He back.
Was that time? That time he don't work out. I thought he was out for 6 months.
Man, I don't know. The dude fights all the time. I can't keep
Okay,
up.
well, anyways, Curtis and Imavov turning around real quick after their scrap. But Dominic, just give me your thoughts on some of these. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention on the Jake Paul Nate Diaz card. By the way, that was bumped up to 10 rounds. I
saw that. Yeah.
I know you cared, but Jeremy Stevens is now boxing Chris Avila on the undercard.
There you go. Now these.
No, I guess you didn't have much thoughts on that. Okay.
Yeah, no, not really. Cejudo Vera is where it starts and where it ends. I mean, that fight, of course, conveniently enough, got announced right when we got off recording Monday night, so it's another one of those. But that's it. That's one that I didn't expect. Didn't expect that at all. It came out of left field, but wow. if you ain't excited about that and what could happen in that matchup, I don't know what gets you out of bed in the morning. So that's very intriguing. Marla instantly can put himself back into the title mix. And Cejudo, I feel like all the guy has to do is win one fight, and he's likely going to fight for some sort of belt. I don't know what weight class, but he's going to fight for a belt somewhere. So that's a big fight. KKF and Manel Kopp is my second favorite one of this bunch. That is such a sick fight. Manel Kopp can't even get a damn fight. Well, he gets them booked all the time, it seems like, but he can't actually get into the octagon. He's getting his chance again to jump up into the top 3. Hopefully this stays together. That's a very sick matchup there. And I'm just happy to see Tatiana Suarez in person. And I'm more happy that we get to see it against Jessica Andrade, because that'll be our second time getting to see her. So
That's true. Will she get, or will
she's never been taken down,
Yeah, well, that was Joanne Wood that you were saying that about, but I almost said that, and I'm like, wait a minute, he was talking about Joanne Wood back then.
And now
It'll be interesting to see it come full circle. You can say Jessica Andrade has never been taken down, and then Tatiana, does Habib shit.
Yep.
Let me ask you, because look, I love pretty much all these, even the JDS Fabricio fight. I'm probably gonna watch, but let me ask you about that Cejudo Vera fight, because it's interesting, and this has been a debate that's being had since this fight was announced, along with Sandhagen, Umar Nurmagomedov. So I'm sure you know the direction I'm going here. Sandhagen comes off a pretty dominant win over Marlon Vera, and his next fight is against the top 10 or ranked number 10, Umar Nurmagomedov, who is yet to fight against a ranked opponent. While Marlon Vera gets dominated against Corey, and he gets a fight against the guy who just lost in the bantamweight title fight, and Henry Cejudo, also former 2-division champion. So, and Olympic gold medalist, by the way, Triple C. So, does it feel like the matchmaking's a little off here, or is it really not that big of a deal? I mean, they're 2 weeks apart, so it's kind of hard to make an argument for the timing of it all, because it's kind of like, really, was it that big of a deal, the 2 weeks? Just your thoughts overall. Do you really care? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I hadn't really even looked into that or thought about it.
Okay. I've been seeing it a lot on Twitter. That's why I brought it up.
I mean, the Corey and Umar one's definitely weird, right? That one got put together for sure. And then, I guess when you see that this is just 2 weeks after, why couldn't we interchange them somehow? I guess it would make sense to do Vera versus Umar and Cejudo versus Corey. That would maybe make a little bit more sense, something like that. But all in all, I don't know. Is it crazy that I think a win, Corey beating Umar, is a bigger title earning opportunity than Henry beating Vera? Is that kind of crazy?
It might be crazy, but I'll be honest with you, Dominic. I literally do not care about this. I understand people's argument, but I also just don't care. I love both fights.
Both fights are awesome.
I'm not gonna feel guilty for liking both fights. At the end of the day, these guys signed to fight each other.
I'm shocked people are saying that, honestly.
I mean, I think people are more so trying to defend Corey Sandhagen. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. Why does he have to go and fight a Nurmagomedov who hasn't fought a ranked opponent yet?
Yeah.
And Cheeto, who he just dominated, gets to fight the guy who just lost in a title fight. And, it's like a bigger stage, a bigger fight.
That's true.
I look at it, I mean, it's strange, right? It does seem so easy to do that. It's kind of like what we talked about, how weird it is that you got Sean Strickland taking on a yellow bus, and you have Paulo Costa taking on Ikram Aliskerov, and it feels like shouldn't Sean and Paulo
flip-flop all this?
Maybe it's just coincidences. Maybe the matchmaking's something's gone awry. I don't know what's going on, but I'm with these two fights. I didn't notice it until people brought it to my attention. Therefore, I love these fights and I don't care.
Stylistically, both are so interesting, man.
I mean, you can't deny, if they flipped them and you did Corey Henry and then Cheeto Umar, they're still great fights. And I'm not going to say that they're dramatically worse. Obviously, if those were the ones that got announced and then we considered the alternative, we'd be like, oh, that might be a little weird. But I don't think there's would it make more sense from a matchmaking perspective? Yes. But I'm just saying, it doesn't, it's not Sandhagen versus Cejudo is not a dramatically better fight, in my opinion, than
No.
Cejudo Vera.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like to me, it's like the fight qualities. Like I think that Sandhagen Umar fight is so interesting.
Oh
I think
gosh.
that's
Yeah.
so much more interesting than doing Vera and Umar,
Yeah. There. Yes. 100% agree with that.
which would still be very interesting. I'm just saying, Sandhagen, considering the way he just won.
Yeah.
And when you hear people that are really in the know, Dom, to the group out in Dagestan, they say Umar's the best of the whole bunch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have him taking on Sandhagen. That's not a knock on Vera. Like I know Vera lost that way. He's fantastic. Like he's going to be fine. If he fought Umar, I'm not saying I think Umar crushes him. I'm just saying it's so interesting considering where Sandhagen is currently.
And the way
And
that people have
Umar,
always viewed Corey as well. I
yeah,
think
well,
it.
yeah. Like, and then you look at Umar and you're like, this guy really hasn't, like, he is all potential, but he is yet to really prove anything.
Yeah. And
And
now he's
now he's
just
going to
in.
have to do it against Sandhagen. Like, that's wow.
Yeah.
What a fight. And we get to
Yeah.
go see it live, Dominic.
Goosebumps.
Speaking of goosebumps, Dominic, I'm back in the betting side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. You're back.
Dominic did get a win last week. I was not able to place a single bet, but that's okay. You know,
Win's a win. Win's a win.
a win is a win. I completely agree. No asterisk at all. Some people were saying, oh, there should be an asterisk on that one, or you guys should take the win off. But, you know, I feel like Dominic hasn't gotten a lot of wins so far, and I feel like it was only best that I keep that on his record. Just, I didn't want to, like, you know, pull the rug out from under him. We're not sure how many more you're going to get.
At the end of the year, that 1 week could be the difference. Time will tell.
It could be. Did you want to go over some of your bets, Dominic? I will admit I have not placed anything as of now.
Okay.
So I will open the floor to you if you would like, but just be brief.
Yeah. I have a small little slate for now. 4 plays, likely going to add more, but it's just a matter of finding the right stuff. Noah, feel free when I'm done. If you have any leans, you can feel free to talk about those. But for me, I'm starting with the 3-leg violence parlay. Brundage Dumas under 2.5. Lane Tafa under 2.5. Peak Mariscal inside the distance. It comes out to plus 106. There's violence written all over the board. Trevor Peak's never gone to a decision. Austin Lane has never gone to a decision. All these dudes have like 70+%, if not way higher, of not going to the judges' scorecards. I love a good little violence parlay. Love it, love it, love it. Bet number 2 is another parlay. It's a 2-leg money line parlay. It came out to minus 105. Tatsuro, Taira, way deep down on the prelims against Kleydson Rodrigues, and friend of the program, Randy Brown. I put those two together. I love them both in this spot here. I will say for Tatsuro, this is definitely, I feel like, the hardest matchup for him. But man, this guy's special. And I think he's one of the leading charges of the future of the 125-pound division. And only 23 years old, the ceiling and the future is just so bright for him. And Randy Brown, yes, he's coming off of a loss in his last one, but before that, had looked the best that he ever had in a 4 or 5 fight winning streak. Wellington Turman's dangerous, but the better fighter in this fight's Randy Brown, and I think he gets a dub here and gets back on track. Bet number 3, I love the fight. I mentioned it in the rest of UFC Jacksonville, but I did take a lean. I did take a sign, and it's Tabatha Ricci money line minus 132 over Gillian Robinson. And I said this already earlier. I meant Robertson. Sorry, I said Robinson. I had takeaways for both in their last fight. I feel like it was both of their best performances for Ricci that we had ever seen, and for Gillian in quite some time anyways, debuting at 115. But Ricci's not going to just get rolled on and out-grappled and submitted easily on the ground, and that's what Gillian needs to do in order to win. Ricci is very well-started in a jiu-jitsu black belt herself on the ground. She's a better, well-rounded fighter in wrestling and stand-up. I think there's more past the victory, and I think Baby Shark gets the win there. And then bet number 4, the final one for now. I like to think I'm going to add more as the days go on, but as of today, 0.55 units. I had to make it to where I get a full unit back return. David Onama money line. It's War Onama. It's that simple. 10 months off. If the defense, the striking defense has been improved upon, I think he actually wins this fight, and I love him. I know Gabriel Santos is good, and he took an undefeated Lerone Murphy to a close split decision. but that was still his first UFC fight. Onama's now had 4. He's battle tested, good competition, man. I think he can get this done. As I said, offensively, he's way better than just some dude that gets fight of the nights all the time. I wanted to go a full unit, but just to be on the safe side,
why don't
units
you?
are important. Units are important in this game, Noah. So I had to go 0.55 and win a full unit back.
No, you seem so confident in him. I mean, why not put a full unit? You just said it. War
.45 could be the difference.
Yeah, you feel like you're not really going to war when you're only half in. You're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That could be the difference between him winning and losing.
It's a game of inches.
That's what she said. Anyways,
not to us.
That didn't make much sense. Let's go on to closing statements. The point of the show where me and Dominic talk about anything and everything, MMA related or not. So, Dominic, do you have any closing statements for today?
Yeah, and it's simple. We have to talk Black Mirror.
Ooh.
Wow.
You watched it.
Shut up and dance. Wow. That's I can tell just by watching one episode how fucked up this show is to watch.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'll tell you, I got done and my brain was just like all over the place. What an episode to recommend.
Should we put a spoiler alert in case anyone hasn't seen it? Like, do you want to dive into some stuff?
If you want to, we can. But it's just like, you're right. It's scary, but in a different way. You know what I mean? It's not like a horror show, but it's like the real life and the technology and all that weird stuff. So that was a pretty wild one and a great recommendation, because watching that, I will say, definitely intrigues me to tune in and check out other episodes. So you did it justice.
Oh, okay. I'm glad. I don't know if I would say it's like the best episode, but it's the one that I like immediately go to.
It stands out to you. Yeah.
It is the one. If someone said, if you're going to recommend it to a friend, what's the first episode you tell them to watch? It's Shut Up and Dance. I mean,
yeah,
it's a mind fucker of an episode. And you know what's so there's a couple things that are really terrifying. One, you find yourself feeling terrible for this kid and you root for him the whole time just to find out that he's pretty terrible by the end of it. You also like feel his like you feel the emptiness that he feels at the end of that episode, because he just went through all of this to try to obviously keep, what he was doing under wraps. Robbed a bank, killed a man, obviously did what he did, and only to have his mom call him freaking out, cops pulling up. Like, you can just see like his life's over. It's a terrifying, like, even if it's something like, well, he deserves it, you also just go like, oh my God, like you're watching.
There's like moments during that episode where you genuinely feel anxious watching.
Yeah, like I remember you see his face at the end and you just see emptiness. Like, you're like, wow, I just watched someone in real time lose their will to live.
I've never seen that kid before. His acting was unfucking believable.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Like the whole episode, the fear and every emotion he had to display was unreal.
But that's like the best way I could try to summarize the plot of the show, since each episode is obviously its own contained narrative. It's really like it don't get me wrong, like it uses technology to tell a story, but it's all technology, Dom, for the most part. That there's some episodes that don't abide by this, but for the most part, it's technology that you could realistically see us having. I mean, even in that episode, like, that's mostly stuff that probably could happen. Like, maybe not to that extent, but like this idea that, people can hack into webcams and stuff, and the dark web's a nasty place where stuff like that happens all the time. Who's to say that couldn't happen in the near future, at least? And that's a great thing about, because it's usually pretty depressing. Like, there's not a lot of happy endings in this show.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what makes it so scary, is that the technology is stuff that we could realistically be heading towards, and the endings are usually not very good.
Right. And like, like you just said, most of them aren't happy endings. Do you feel like in all of these episodes, they do a good job at really displaying like the realism and making it seem very real world. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that's what it felt like.
One of my favorite things about the show, which it took me a minute when I first started watching it to kind of adjust to, is whenever you start an episode, Dom, it feels like you're watching like the third or fourth episode of a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
You are basically just thrown in. You have no
Yeah.
context for anything.
The beginning
You
of
don't
this
know,
one was
yeah,
like
you don't
that.
know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
And really you just have to pay attention and watch it unravel, and you kind of in the breadcrumb trail. They
Yeah.
just give you little bits of information when they want to. And it's what I love about it, is that every one, you have to kind of, it forces you to stay observant to everything going on, because you don't, like, when they start it, you have no idea what's going on. There's
Yeah.
no, narration that's someone telling you what you're supposed to be feeling or what you're supposed to be seeing. None of that. There's no, Star Wars opening crawl coming down the
Mm-hmm.
screen telling you the backstory. You have
You're
to
right
figure
in.
it all out yourself. And sometimes there's no backstory. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just you're there and you have so many questions and not that many answers.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wild, dude.
And I highly recommend to keep watching, Dom. I can give you offline some more.
Should I just
episodes.
keep going randomly, or should I start
I
watching?
think going
from
randomly is
forward?
probably the best way, because if you start at the first episode's not one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the weaker ones.
Is there something about a pig in that episode?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to know.
Okay, but I remember a long time ago, whether I don't know if I started the episode or was going to start it, and I remember something about a pig. That's all I remember.
You might have looked up the clip,
Yeah. But anyway.
I know you have no idea what I'm. Okay.
No, I
my name's
definitely
Noah. My name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Lee. We are but just two of the below average shows. And we'll see you guys on Monday.